We actually ate in the kitchen.
Well, battery may be dead in that, but that's okay. We can use this manually. I'm Dr. Paul Firnhaber. Most of you know that. First of all, I want to thank all of you for taking a half an hour out of your life to learn a little bit more about your health. My hope and prayer for you guys tonight is that you're going to learn several things. Number one is I want you to get to the point where you pursue a lifestyle of health rather than just a reduction of pain. The second thing that I want you to get out of this talk tonight is I want you to be able to think much deeper about how your body works, about what health is, and regardless of which kind of healthcare practitioner you go see, that you can ask deeper and more intelligent questions. The third thing that I want you to get out of this is I want you to be able to communicate some of the truths that I'm going to be talking about with other people, with other friends. In other words, spread the good news about health. We live in a culture where what we call our healthcare system, what is it really? How would you describe our healthcare system?
It's crisis care.
It's crisis care. It's disease care. It's symptom care. It's not health care, okay? So if an unhealthy person breaks their leg, goes to an orthopedic surgeon, the orthopedic surgeon is going to set it, put a cast on it, which is all good. That's where I'd want to go if I broke my leg. When he gets a cast off, is he going to be any healthier than he was? No, he's going to be an unhealthy person with a healed broken leg. Okay? So what I want to talk tonight is about health, about how to achieve that. And so this is about lifetime care of being healthy. So what is most people's, let me just fix this here. There we go. So what is most people's approach to lifetime care? Or is their approach? Anybody? What's most people's approach to lifetime care? There's a lot of dogma out there, a lot of things that people think. What are some of those things?
Just keep on adding on medications.
Well, that's one, yeah. I see it all the time. You got another symptom? Pile on another medication, okay? Mm-hmm. Which does what?
Complicates.
Can produce more symptoms,
Yeah.
which piles on more meds, okay? What else? Let's talk about it. Let's look at some of them. There are many misconceptions about health. If it's not broke, you don't fix it, okay? That's one, and I talk about that in the X-ray report. So if we don't think there's a problem, we're not even going to look into it. Now, we don't do that with our automobiles, right? We don't do that with our cars. We do a lot of preventative. Do we do that with our houses? You know, if we see a few termites, well, the floor hasn't caved in yet, so I'm not gonna bother with it. Okay, I'm gonna wait till it caves in. I really need to work on it. We don't do stuff like that. We do with our bodies. How about this one? If it doesn't hurt, there must not be a problem. Okay, I'm gonna ask you guys a question. How many of you know, and I could name people that I know, how many of you know people that felt pretty good, they went into the doctor for a checkup, they found out they had late stage cancer? Anybody?
Yeah.
I can name people like that.
Yeah.
They didn't hurt, they didn't have any symptoms. I mean, and you know, the doctor discovers cancer, he didn't say, well, you know, how do you feel? You feel okay? Well, okay, go ahead and go. No, they didn't do that. So this is ridiculous. See, if it doesn't hurt, so what do we have to do? Have a catastrophic failure in our health and to get our money's worth? Is that what we want to do? No. Okay, let's do another one. If you went to a real doctor, he would fix it and you wouldn't have to go back. Really? Well, anybody in here ever have heard of Tiger Woods? Really? You know how many back surgeries he's had?
19 or 20.
not quite that many, Terry.
Okay, close though.
He said 5 that I know. I don't know of anybody that can survive that many surgeries.
I don't know either.
He's at 5. Okay,
Yeah.
that's,
Two
I don't know,
enough.
that's 5 too many for me. You know, I've never had one. I never want one, okay? Now, considering the accident he just had, he may have another one. I don't know. So, now, these attitudes are really not a good basis for sound health care. So if our engine isn't seized up, we don't change the oil, okay? Now, I had that happen to me when I was 16, okay? It was my dad's car. Not a great day for our family, I can tell you that, okay? And I learned a really hard lesson that day. All right, we change the oil in our cars because we want them to run well, okay? And as human beings, we want things to work their best. And that's why we buy new models of cell phones and computers. You know, new cars are faster and safer. New cell phones are more powerful because we want them to work well. But we want to do that with our bodies too. Doesn't mean we always want to pay the price, because people make fun of other people sometimes who exercise regularly, take vitamins, read a healthy diet. I mean, I've been called a health nut by lots of people. In fact, one of the pastors in our church referred me to that. So what are you, a disease nut? I mean, really, yeah, you're right, I am a health nut. I enjoy being healthy. I enjoy not being in the hospital, not taking pharmaceuticals. So, you know, with your chiropractic care, they may ask you, well, didn't they fix you yet? You still going back there even if you don't have pain? There's a reason, and we'll get into that, either this talk or another, on why there's an advantage to doing that. So let's just talk about how we think about things. So we don't exercise today to avoid a heart attack tomorrow, okay? Now, regular exercise will help you avoid that, but we exercise because it enhances our life, okay? I exercise regularly because I feel better, and it even enhances the meals I eat. I'm not quite as hungry. It damps down my appetite. So enhances our life. It enhances everything we do. You know, we don't read today to fix our brain tomorrow so we don't have a headache. We read because it stimulates our brain, and we know for a fact that when we stimulate our brain function, our cognition lasts longer, okay? So reading is actually something to do to help your health. Our brain doesn't deteriorate nearly as fast. And that's actually a reality. Now, anything that applies to the virtue of existence is a process and not an end result. And we have to always be engaged in that process. So when are we going to be done? When are we going to be done? Let's see. When are we going to be done exercising? Do we stop at 40 and go, I'm done. No more exercising for me. How about eating the right food? Well, I'm 60 now. I can gorge on junk food. I'm not eating more healthy. No more salads for me. Okay. No, we don't think. I know some people think like this. Some people have never eaten a salad, but you know, how about brushing our teeth? Well, you know, I'm 55. I'm just tired of doing it. You know, we don't do that.
Yeah.
How about praying? Well, I said my last prayer 2 years ago. No more for me. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm too busy. Okay. And how about this one? Loving your family. When do you stop loving your family? These are all virtues that they're a process. They're not an end result. We don't finish brushing our teeth and then stop for the rest of our loving our family. Well, our health is like that too. This is lifetime care is a discussion that a lot of people won't engage in. And you guys are a minority. The fact that you're even here tonight, there's very few people in our population overall that decide to take care of themselves regardless of how they feel, okay? So it takes a certain level, like I put here, of evolved thinking to realize that you don't respond only when there is a crisis. Although I would say this, that the majority of patients that come in to see me usually are in some type of a crisis. It can be a big one or a little one, but they're in pain, okay? And so, do I want to get you out of pain? Absolutely. But I want you to understand that it's better to stay out of pain and be healthy than to wait till your body breaks down again. So, we don't wait to respond to the IRS until after they seize our house, okay? Hopefully, you'll take better care of your heart than to wait till you have heart surgery, and then you have to do it. Because once you've had heart surgery, what do they do immediately? Once you have heart surgery, what's the protocol?
They put you on antibiotics.
Well, 3 months of cardiac rehab.
Oh, yeah.
3 months, okay?
Yeah.
Three times a week. They don't ask you to do it. They say, you're going to do it, you know, and you're going to pay by the month. You're not going to pay by the visit. You know, you're going to, that's what they do, okay? So it's better if you keep your heart well or healthy than wait till you have the heart attack. Mm-hmm. So I know that we're all prone to laziness at times. I am, we all are, you know, and so, you know, every now and then you might want to need to sleep an extra half hour or eat an extra piece of pie, and, you know, that happens, okay? But that should not define our life, okay? You know, 3 or 4 pieces of pie after every meal should not define how we live.
3 or 4,
okay?
wow. That's more than a pie.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So,
Just
in
give the whole
thinking
pie.
of lifetime care, we must think of a few important words. Number 1 is process, not outcome. Engagement, not the return. In other words, lifetime care is a never-ending process that we constantly have to be engaged in. Some people, when they start chiropractic care, they hear stories like, you know, when you go to start seeing a chiropractor, you have to go for the rest of your life and you can't stop. Well, that's not true. You know, I don't have any chains on the door. I'm not, you know, keeping people in here. Here's the reason some people choose to go to a chiropractor for the rest of their life. Because they feel a greater sense of energy, vitality, and health, and they want to maintain that. Now, some people don't. There are people that don't. Some people do, and that's your choice, by the way. I'm not going to choose that for you. But I get adjusted once a week just because I want to stay healthy, and I don't want to end up in the hospital, and I don't want to take medication. I don't want a $700 medication bill a month. I'd rather have my body work properly. So I want to talk about Sally's story. Okay, Sally's she's a patient of mine. Her real name is not Sally. Okay, but this is a great story. So this is a young lady who's 20 years old. Came into my office. She's sort of been a patient of mine off and on for different things. She was kind of more of a crisis care patient, actually. And so she's in a car accident, and she came and she saw me for about 3 months straight to get her well from the accident. So towards the end of that care, she said to me one day, she says, you know, I don't know if this is just a coincidence or not, but you know, since you've been taking care of, since I've been coming here regularly, I've noticed that my menstrual cycles are normal, that I don't have cramps anymore. And that seems just to be working the way it's supposed to. Do you think that could be a coincidence? What do you think I said? No, it's not a coincidence. You know? In fact, you're experiencing what you should experience in chiropractic care. In other words, it's not just pain relief. It's a normalization of the autonomic nervous system, which makes all your organs function better. Okay, so you know, and when she heard that, you know, she was like, "Hey, I'm all in. You know, this is good. This is good stuff. You know, I don't need any drugs for this." Yeah. But not everybody can make sense of that, and that's why a lot of people make fun of chiropractic and that type of thing. But you know, that's kind of been the way it's always been with something that's a little different. That's nothing new. So let's look at another way of understanding lifetime care. Caring for your body is something you do at certain moments, but not at other moments. Now, would you agree with that or disagree? Doesn't matter. I don't care. You agree? How many would agree with that? That caring for your body, you do it sometimes, but other times you don't. Okay. So I would say this. Every moment of our lives, we're doing something to either not care or care for our body. So let's look at that. All right. Hans Selye, this is the guy that developed the concept of stress and how stress affects the body. And he was pretty active in the 40s. He's a very, very prominent scientist. And he came up with a very controversial idea back then. He said stressful thoughts and emotional upsets makes cancer grow faster. Now that was very controversial back then. And he was really mocked. Now today, that's an accepted fact, is that negative, stressful thoughts actually make disease grow faster. Okay? So the way that we think affects our health. But we think, are there times when we're not thinking? Mm-hmm. No, we think all the time. All right? Mm-hmm. Anybody ever heard of Firnhaber? Mm-hmm. Well, you have, because you've been to this talk before. That's why you've heard it. Yeah. Okay. So Firnhaber is a very, very well-known German physician. In the early 1980s, this is what happened to him. He had a son that he loved who was over in Italy who was murdered by an Italian nobleman. And of course, that would affect anybody. You know, anybody would be affected by the murder of their child. Mm-hmm. But one of the things he noticed, after 6 months, he developed testicular cancer. He goes, that's really weird. He says, there must be a connection between the way I feel about my son's death and what's happening to me. So he started researching all of his patients who'd had cancer, started researching their history, and here's what he found. He produced absolute scientific proof that every cancer has a negative emotional origin, and specific diseases have very specific emotional traumas associated with them. So lung disease was grief or sorrow, stomach and small intestine problems, indigestible anger, liver, starvation of love. And he noticed that people that had diseases in these organs had emotions, and he could identify them with an MRI and identify which part of the brain they were in. What do you think happened to him? How do you think he was received by the medical community?
Not very well.
He was ostracized. Mm-hmm. In fact, he lost his license for a while. Mm. And he had absolute proof of this. Mm. So this is the problem, is that we have this ossified thinking in our medical community that cannot accept things like this. Now, the chiropractors love this guy, you know, and they use a lot of this. I use some of this in my own practice, some of his thinking. I haven't gone to a lot of his seminars, but I use some of his ideas. We render care to ourselves constantly. Number one, by the beverages we choose to drink. You drink water, or do you drink Coca-Cola? You know, it does make a difference, okay? Whether or not we choose to exercise, and even what kind of exercise we choose to do. We render care to ourselves by the food that we choose to eat. We render care to ourselves by how much we chew our food. Now, that's hitting pretty close to home, okay? I'm not, you know, that's the one I don't like putting up there. But, you know, truth is truth, okay? Whether we smoke cigarettes, whether we drink to extreme, whether we have limited sugar, we limit our sugar, or we have too much sugar. Whether we consume artificial sweeteners, which really damage our nervous system. We render care to ourselves all the time. What we choose to eat at a meal. Are we rendering, are we rendering care to our body every breathing second? What about when we sleep? Okay, let's just look at that argument. What if you go to bed and you're angry all the time when you sleep? What does that do What's that do to our bodies when that anger or that frustration percolates around in our brain all night? You know, what if we go to bed with constant unforgiveness and that, you know, bounces around our head all night? What does that do to our bodies? Of course it's going to affect it.
Mm-hmm. Causes cancer.
So lifetime care is not a choice. It's the quality of care that we're rendering to ourselves. So if somebody goes, hey, you still going to that chiropractor? You still seeing him? You know, we don't sing to our patients, by the way. You wouldn't want me to sing to you, all right? You still doing that? Really, the question that they should be asking is, what kind of care are you rendering to yourself? Are you rendering better care to yourself? That's really what they should ask. Okay? So now we're going to skip through this because I did a talk on the coronavirus along with this talk about a year ago. So let's talk about the process of care. So when we read, we don't, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't read the first page of a book and then the last page to see how it ends. You know, I kind of like to read the whole thing and enjoy it. So that's the process. We engage in the process. What about the rendering of care to children? Well, children get adjusted, and I have a whole presentation on kids and chiropractic, which I'm going to do later this year. But, you know, one of the things I've learned about kids is that they tend to imitate us. You know, so if we exercise, kids start doing that, and if we eat right, I mean, they don't always like to eat the food we do, but they tend to kids tend to catch things rather than over being taught things. So my request to you is your doctor of chiropractic who takes care of your spine and your nervous system, which controls everything in your body. That number one is when I give you spinal exercises, you do them, okay? Number two is you try, if you're in the workplace, you try and use proper ergonomics, all right? So remember, if we don't use our ligaments properly, and by the way, what do ligaments do?
Hold our joints together.
Hold our bones together. Good job. I'll tell you what else they do. They tell our body where things are in space and time. They're very well innervated. So the ligaments in your neck, when you bend your head down, it's because of the ligaments in your neck. That's part of it that tells you your head is. You lift your arm up, it's the ligaments in your arm that's telling your brain where your arm is, okay? So if you don't use your ligaments properly, every 5 to 7 days, they fibrose, they start to get hardened. And over time, these ligaments get hard, and then they stop working well, okay? And we see that on x-rays all the time. So when you get adjusted, you keep those ligaments fertile and as healthy as possible. And joints only repair to the extent that they are used. Okay, every day you exercise properly and you do spinal stretches, you are rendering good quality lifetime care. Some people have a habit of going from tragedy to tragedy. Do anybody know people like that? Yeah, I know people like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way they do it. Okay, that's another form of lifetime care. That's not what I want. Okay? Now, if that's your form of lifetime care, you're going to be really frustrated in my office. Okay? Because that's not the way I do things. You know, we want lifetime care that's based on wise decisions. So our society has given us so many confusing messages regarding diet and nutrition and what's good for our body, what's bad for our body. So that's why I encourage you to come to some of these classes, because I can give you the truth and the scientific research on what's the literature saying. I mean, in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about anti-aging. And every slide I have up there is from a medical journal that says, this will slow down the aging process. This will speed up the aging process. That's something that might be really useful to you. So, I'm not necessarily here to treat you how you feel, but to make sure that your brain and your spinal column is operating properly so your body can heal and work like it's supposed to. That doesn't mean that you'll never be in pain again or you'll never have the symptoms you came in with, okay? Doesn't mean that. But it does mean that you're going to age slower, okay? And your body's going to repair more efficiently. And I'm going to show you that aging slower part in 2 weeks. So,
The geezer.
that's pretty much what I have for tonight. And I just want to encourage you, if most of you know people who are in the process, they're not healthy, they're in pain, they're not well, and they're doing things that aren't helping them, I would ask you a couple of things. Number one is bring them to some of my classes, okay? Doesn't cost anything to do that. Just bring them and let them, bring them to the class on anti-aging. Number two thing is have them come in and talk to me, okay? If they have an issue, I'll even call them on the phone. I'll give them, 10 minutes of my time on the phone, and let's see if there's a chance that we can help them, rather than have them, lollygag along in bad health and discomfort and pain and fatigue and all the other things that plague the people in this society. And Carmen will be glad you talk to Carmen. She'll be glad to schedule them. And if I can help them, great. If I can't, I'll try and get them to a place that can help them. So you can talk to her about that. Looks like I'm done just a little bit early today. So before I go, anybody have any questions? Carrie?
I do. When it comes to allergies, I have allergies like pollen, dust, different kind of pollen, dust type allergies. Not so much, I don't have any food allergies. But what can I do as a lifetime of care to kind of alleviate some of that dust and pollen that gets in my system and histology? I get a plugged up head, my sinuses drain, it's like redness of the eye, especially during July. And I just have autumn and late summer allergies that bother me. What can I do? I don't want to take medication for it because that makes me either sleepy or just makes me go to the bathroom more or something like that. Medication has side effects for allergy control, so can we come up with some kind of a plan or do something that helps out the allergy part of it?
I'll tell you what I'll do, Terry. I promise you I will answer that question in 2 weeks.
Oh,
my class in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'll actually talk about that in 2 weeks.
Good.
Okay. We'll talk about how you can affect allergies, because there's a lot of things that
A lot of integrated biochemical things going on.
A lot of things, simple things you can do to avoid that.
Okay.
Okay.
Another question I have is with ligaments. My ligaments, as I get older, I'm 66, I seem to be tightening up. I still do the same physical activities of walking and doing everything, daily activities, house cleaning, laundry, you name it. I mean, my ligaments seem to be getting stiffer. My joints are getting
I would
tougher.
suggest, Terry, that you probably need to change the way you exercise. That just activities of daily living is not going to cut it.
Well,
and you need to exercise differently. Now there will be some of that as you get older.
yeah.
But you got to exercise right. You got to eat right. You got to drink. You're drinking good water because I know you get it from me.
The Kangen water.
But a lot of that has to do with how much you exercise and the kind of exercise you do. And if you don't exercise and you don't stretch and work those ligaments, okay, your body, they're going to harden and they won't work as well.
I got to stretch to put my socks on in the morning. I mean, bend over just to do that.
Okay, that's all we're going to talk about tonight. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you got something out of this, and I'll see you in 2 weeks for the talk, How to Be a Geezer.